Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring some unbelievable story. Stay tuned and let's dive in. Ethan Caldwell's career into law enforcement was motivated by tragedy rather than ambition. As a youngster in rural Nebraska, he saw a brutal robbery that killed his father, a local shopkeeper. That experience instilled in him an unwavering determination to guarantee no family suffered such grief without justice. Aaron's ability to solve complex issues prompted him to study criminology in college. At the time, the idea of joining the police force sounded far-fetched, since he had originally intended a career in academics. However, an internship with the Phoenix Police Department introduced him to both the harsh reality of crime and the great gratification of solving crimes. Aaron was immediately known during his rookie years for his ability to see patterns that others overlooked. An amazing intuition, along with painstaking research, led him to his first important case, a serial burglar who had evaded detection for months. His achievement cemented his reputation, but it also placed a bullseye on his back. Aaron has seen the worst and finest of human nature before marrying Claire. However, he had never felt more vulnerable than when he initially proposed to her. Claire, a rising star in San Francisco's competitive real estate market, exemplified the success and tenacity Aaron admired. Their connection seemed unbreakable at the moment. The couple's Queen and Hill house was a reflection of their combined successes. It was both a shelter and a symbol, expressing Claire's exquisite taste and Aaron's unwavering commitment to provide a safe environment for their future lives. Though life seemed ideal, cracks started to appear as their occupations required more time and energy. Claire's real estate business grew, and so did the gap between them. What started as small changes, like a new scent and inexplicable absences, turned into obvious indicators of concealment. For Aaron, whose instincts seldom failed him, it seemed like the start of a case too close to home. The steady hammering of fall rain against the bedroom window reflected the strain building within. Detective Ethan Caldwell stood unmoving outside the door to their large closet, his hands deep in his pockets. He saw his wife ready for another evening out. Sophia Caldwell exhibited her customary cool demeanor while applying a bright coat of scarlet lipstick with studied accuracy. Her calm demeanor did nothing to alleviate Aaron's anxieties. Years of police had sharpened his ability to read people, and something about Claire's recent conduct sent shivers down his spine. Subtle changes in her manner hinted at secrets she wasn't telling, and the growing evidence was becoming difficult to dismiss. Ambition had always been one of Claire's distinguishing characteristics, the same attribute that drew Aaron to her in the first place. But it seemed like that desire had taken a darker turn, and Aaron couldn't escape the sensation that her priorities had evolved in ways she wasn't prepared to reveal. Another late-night meeting. "Is Daniel Carter joining tonight?" Aaron said, his tone light, his gaze fixated on her. From the mirror, he saw how she averted his eyes while fixing the pearl earrings he had bought her for their anniversary. "The Morrison deal won't wait," Claire said casually, grabbing for her Dior J'adore. Aaron watched as she slipped the strange black Versace dress over her hips. "Don't wait up." Her outfit had become notably more lavish in recent months. Her formerly sophisticated yet subtle style has been supplanted with high-end designer goods. "That's what happens when you're managing an $80 million project," Claire said, her heels tapping across the hardwood floor of their perfectly restored Victorian house in Nob Hill. As Aaron followed her downstairs, he couldn't help but notice how often she looked at her phone, her fingers running over the screen with anxious intensity. Her makeup was thicker than normal, and the whole picture, the polished look, the hazy explanations, the anxious energy, did not match up. "Is Daniel Carter joining tonight?" he said, referring to the project's principal investor. She hesitated briefly. "No, he's overseas, just some board members and the technical team," she said, slipping her phone inside her Gucci tote bag. She did not look into his eyes again. "Sounds like a packed agenda," Aaron said, unlocking the door for her. The rain had increased, smashing the cobblestone streets. "Drive carefully, it's nasty out there." Her face twitched briefly with remorse. She took a step closer, adjusting his tie in an almost wistful gesture. "Don't stay up too late working on that cold case," she murmured quietly as she walked out into the rain. From the doorway, Aaron saw her Lexus drive away, vanishing into the stormy night. Her perfume remained, but so did another scent, woodsy, costly, and decidedly male. Aaron unlocked his laptop in his office and turned on the GPS tracker he had installed on Claire's vehicle many weeks before. The red dot migrated across the map, away from the financial sector and toward another section of the city. He picked up his phone and phoned a familiar number. After a few rings, Detective Olivia Navarro responded. "Grace, it's Aaron. Can we meet tomorrow, usual place?" She hesitated momentarily. "Everything okay?" "Just need a second opinion," Aaron remarked, his gaze fixed on the screen. "Hudson Street Diner's sharp," Grace said. "I'll grab our booth." "I'll bring what I've got," Aaron said. After hanging up, he sat back in his chair and replayed the evening in his thoughts. He took out his notepad and started scribbling down observations, the pricey wardrobe improvements, the ambiguous responses, the discrepancies. The rain continued to pound on the glass and the clock in the corridor chimed 9, disturbing the quiet. Aaron closed the journal and stepped to the window, peering down at the rain-slick streets. His instincts informed him that this wasn't simply an affair, it seemed larger and more deliberate. Tomorrow's coffee would mark the beginning of something deeper. The Hudson Street Diner has remained unchanged for over a decade. Its broken vinyl booths and fading menus had seen many policemen and detectives through difficult mornings, and today was no exception. Aaron settled into his normal seat across from Grace, the air heavy with the pleasant aroma of coffee and bacon. Grace had not altered much, either. Her piercing eyes swept over his face as she offered him a cup of black coffee. "You look terrible," she frankly said, shoving a plate of hash browns toward him. "Nice to see you, too," Aaron said, putting his hands around the warm cup. "Thanks for meeting me." "This isn't official," Grace said, reclining back in the booth. "You've got that look like there's something you're not ready to say out loud." Aaron removed a manila folder from his suitcase and placed it between them on the table. "It's personal," he said, "but it feels bigger than that." Grace observed him for a long time before speaking. "You sure you want to dig into this? Sometimes it's better not to know." Before he could respond, their server, Martha, came with their order of Phoenix omelets with extra cheese and peppers. "Coffee's on the way," she added, smiling. Aaron bowed his gratitude but did not eat the dish. Instead, he opened and slid the folder toward Grace. "I need your perspective," he added gently. "I think this is just the tip of something much larger." Grace studied the contents, her gaze darkening as she turned the pages. "You're right," she said eventually. "This isn't just personal. It's a web. And I think it's time we start untangling it." Aaron nodded, his determination hardened. This wasn't merely a betrayal, it was far more harmful. And now it was time to discover the truth. After Martha departed, Aaron examined the packet, which included bank statements, property records, and surveillance images. Grace raised her eyebrows as she perused the pages. "These transactions are deliberate," she added, pointing to a statement just below reporting restrictions that was spread out to seem random. "That's textbook money laundering." Aaron shoved another paper ahead. "Look who joined her charity board 3 months ago." Grace's eyes narrowed. "Nathan Sterling, the hedge fund guy," she said, hastily tapping something onto her phone. "We've heard whispers about him. Nothing solid, but enough to keep tabs." Aaron passed over a series of images of Claire and Wade meeting at upmarket locations across the city. "It's not just money," he said. "Their body language looks staged, like they are performing." Grace nodded, holding her fork over her breakfast browns. "That's not an affair. It's tradecraft. If she's involved with Wade, this is serious." Aaron showed her the camera footage of Claire and Wade entering a motel. "Watch how they scan their surroundings," he told them. "It's deliberate." Grace breathed sharply. "Ethan, your wife might be in over her head." "I've considered that," Aaron answered flatly. "But I need proof. That's why I called you." Grace taps her notepad carefully. "Wade's financials will be our starting point. My team's flagged suspicious real estate deals. Well, cross-reference with Claire's projects. But you have to keep this under the radar." "I know how to play it," Aaron said, his determination stiffening. "I just need the truth." Grace offered a little nod. "We get it. But be careful. This is professional-level danger. One misstep, and Thea'll know we're onto them." Aaron's demeanor was stern as he looked over the folder. "I've spent 2 decades keeping up appearances. I'll do whatever it takes." They spent an hour analyzing paperwork, with Grace taking notes and contacting her staff while the restaurant emptied and their coffee chilled. Their discomfort increased. "Here's one more," Aaron added, passing over a snapshot from yesterday at the Ritz-Carlton. "Recognize him?" Grace's expression clouded as she examined the photograph. "I do. Has tied to major players in international finance. If these people are involved." Grace did not have to continue. They both understood the ramifications. "Keep digging," Aaron instructed, collecting the files. "But stay careful. Secure channels only. And watch your back." As they walked away, Grace grabbed his arm. "We'll figure this out, Ethan. Just don't do anything reckless." Aaron attempted a little grin. "Slow and steady, Grace." "That's what worries me," she said, gripping his arm and walking into the rain. Aaron paid the bill, tipping generously, and went out into the gloomy rain. His phone vibrated, "Working late again tonight." "Don't wait up." Aaron's jaw tensed as he tucked it away. The inquiry was officially started. Later that night, Aaron parked in the precinct garage. The rain had ceased and the slippery concrete reflected the harsh fluorescent light. Near midnight, the garage was mostly abandoned. His footsteps resounded as he neared his SUV. The day's data weighed heavily on his briefcase. Another set of footsteps caused him to hesitate, and his hand moved reflexively to his holster. "Detective Jacobs." A young lady approached the light. She seemed afraid, dressed professionally yet untidy and in her mid-20s. "I'm Hannah Mitchell," she replied, her voice shaking. "Wade's assistant. I need to talk." Aaron observed her. "Late for a social call, Miss Porter." "This isn't social," she said, removing a USB disk from her purse, making him stiffen. "Wade isn't who he claims to be. Neither is your wife. They are planning something terrible." I couldn't stay silent. Aaron did not take the drive right away. "Why me? Why not the FBI?" Her laughter was sour. "I tried. Wade has connections everywhere. Files vanish, complaints are buried, witnesses." She stopped off, looking around uneasily. "Please take it. Everything's on here, but be careful. They monitor everything." Aaron accepted the drive while seeing her rapidly retreat. "How did you get this?" "I'm his assistant. I handle his schedule, correspondence. He underestimates me, but I've been documenting everything." She was shaking her hands while speaking. "The charity board, the Morrison Project. It's not what you think. Offshore accounts, shell companies, people who vanish after one meeting." Bethany gasped as a vehicle engine reverberated. "No police reports," she muttered. "No official channels. Just look at the drive. But not at home. Or the station." Aaron took the driving. "How can I reach you?" "You can't," she murmured, moving back into the darkness. "Be careful, detective. Especially with those closest to you." Before he could react, she disappeared into the garage. The USB felt like a heavy weight in his pocket as he searched the now quiet area. Aaron reached his vehicle and texted Grace, "Need secure place off the books. Technical support." Her reply was swift, "My apartment. 1 hour. Bring coffee." Aaron took a lengthy, winding path home, keeping a facade of normalcy in case anybody was observing. The USB disk in his pocket felt weighty, its implications echoing in his head with Bethany's admonition about trust. At home, he discovered Claire's letter on the counter, went to bed early. There will be a big presentation tomorrow. As he went around the home, reflexes honed by years of training kept his movements silent. After changing and retrieving his laptop bag, he left a note to follow up on a case lead. Claire looked to be sleeping in their bedroom, but a slight scent of that foreign fragrance remained. Aaron paused at the threshold, replaying Bethany's remarks about treachery. Back in his vehicle, he used an old burner phone from his undercover days and drove to Grace's home cautiously for an hour, making sure he wasn't followed. The USB in his pocket felt like a live bomb about to explode. Aaron came as Grace was waiting in her office. The encrypted laptop had already been set up, and she accepted the USB disk from him with a serious face. "You sure about this?" she said as she plugged it in. Aaron nodded grudgingly. Once we know, there's no turning back. Grace plugged the disk and the data started to decode. Aaron sat quietly, ready for what was to follow. When the first file opened, the intentions put forth were worse than he could have anticipated. The following morning, Aaron sat in his vehicle across from McKenna Security Solutions, a modern downtown office building. The USB's contents continued to weigh on him. Colonel Robert Steele Bob Harrington, his former Special Forces leader, was his next destination. McKenna's workplace mirrored his methodical temperament, with perfectly organized trophies, intelligent furniture arrangement, and nothing out of place. "You look like hell," McKenna said Aaron as he arrived, shaking his hand and motioning for him to seat. "When's the last time you slept?" "Not important," Aaron said, laying the USB on McKenna's desk. "I need your expertise and your discretion." McKenna connected the disk to a protected laptop. His face became darker as he perused the contents. "Your wife's involved with dangerous people," he continued, flipping the screen to see a dossier. "Wade's real name is Viktor Morozov, ex-FSB, running a massive money laundering operation." Aaron experienced a chill. "Russian intelligence." "Former FSB mechanic," McKenna said. "He built his empire after the Soviet collapse." McKenna demonstrated a network of financial transactions. "The Morrison Development ISNT Real Estate. It's a front for laundering money." Aaron's mind raced. "Why involve me?" McKenna pointed to a chronology. "You started digging into property transfers tied to the development. Petro saw you as a threat and decided to eliminate you." Aaron's stomach twisted. "And Claire?" McKenna opened up additional files. "Her real estate success is built on dirty money. Petro started with legitimate-looking investments and slowly pulled her into his operation. Now, he has enough to implicate her in felonies, ensuring her cooperation." Aaron stood and gazed out the window at the metropolitan skyline. "I need to get Claire out. Whatever she's done, she's still my wife." McKenna joined him, his expression stern. "It's not that simple. Petro's operation is entrenched. Walking away won't stop them." Aaron turned to face him. "Then we bring them down." McKenna smiled, a gleam of their past battle days in his eyes. "That's the Ethan Caldwell I know." He pushed a button on his desk phone. "Cancel my meetings. I need everything we have on the Morrison development. Security protocols for hours." The two guys spent the next several hours going over plans, security schedules, and financial documents. McKenna's resources were staggering: satellite pictures, construction plans, and personnel data for everyone involved in Petro's operations. "He's paranoid but arrogant," McKenna said, extending a map of the financial area. "He hides behind his Wade persona, thinking his FSB training makes him untouchable." Aaron nodded. "We let him think his plan is working, keep him comfortable while we build our case." McKenna agreed. "I've got federal contacts who've been after Petro for years but lacked the evidence until now." Aaron looked at his phone. Claire sent another text, "I'm working late again. Don't wait up." The components fit together well. This was not an affair, she was being duped by an exploiter. "What's our first move?" Aaron inquired. "We make him think he's winning," McKenna said, displaying an organizational map of Petro's network. "Feed him what he expects. Gather evidence and prepare to bring it all down." As they planned, Aaron imagined Claire at a luxurious hotel, unknowing that she was being played. "From now on," she warned, "trust no one. Petro has people everywhere." Aaron recalled Bethany's warning and understood. "I get it." McKenna took burner phones and encrypted files from a safe. "Welcome to the Shadow War. Let's hunt." The following 2 weeks were a well-planned operation with McKenna and Grace. Aaron spread misinformation while gathering proof. Using Bethany's access to Wade's office, they dropped subtle signals that the killing plan was on track. Grace established a safe operations center in an abandoned warehouse with monitors watching Petro's network. $5 million just moved through the Caymans, Grace stated. Hes consolidating assets. Aaron analyzed the facts, prepared to act. The door opened and Maline Walsh, a seasoned CIA operator with a commanding presence, entered. She dropped a large file upon the table. "You were right. Petro's network spans 12 cities. Aaron examined the file. How does he operate? Malign displayed a map studded with compromised developers. He targets ambitious people, manipulates them with blackmail, seduction, or financial schemes, and turns them into pawns. Aaron's chest constricted. Claire's just another sufferer. Malign's tone softened. She's vulnerable but not innocent. She made choices, some unethical. Before Aaron could react, a technical analyst interjected. Wade just called an emergency board meeting for the Morrison development. They saw surveillance video as guests arrived. Claire entered in a Chanel outfit, holding her homie's purse. She's nervous, Malign said. See how she keeps adjusting her collar. Classic stress sign. Aaron glanced at the screen, recalling Claire's anxiety-induced fidgeting with jewelry. We got audio, Grace said, flooding the audience with the board meeting broadcast. Wade's silky voice came through. All obstacles have been addressed, the final phase has begun. Aaron's skin crawled. They were treating his intended killing as a commercial transaction. Your wife's unusually quiet, Malign observed. She knows what's coming. Aaron's voice sounded thick. She already made her choice. The board meeting continued another hour, with coded communications and concealed motives. Claire and Wade then departed together, returning to their customary hotel, but something was different this time. Look at Wade's new security detail, McKenna said, pointing to the television. XSN has bringing in heavy hitters. They are preparing for action, Malign remarked. The question is, Grace said, what's our move? Aaron did not hesitate. We keep up the ruse, make them believe their plan is on track, and gather all the evidence we need. Grace accessed banking data. In building a RICO case. If we prove the pattern across all 12 cities, we can dismantle the entire network. We need solid proof, Malign said. Something that ties Wade to Petro and exposes the operation's full scale. Aaron turned to McKenna. Can we leverage the new security guys? McKenna smiled. One of them has a gambling issue. The other has family debts. We're on it, Malign answered, her voice becoming serious. Push too hard, and Petro will sense a trap. Aaron shakes his head. We don't push. We let them come to us. Malign's tone became serious. There's something else. Claire's involvement goes deeper than we thought. She's been actively participating for years. Aaron took a big breath. Show me. Malign showed Aaron the facts, and the reality struck him like a gut strike. Claire hadn't just been a pawn. She had taken deliberate moves that landed her squarely in Petro's clutches. Later, in a poorly lit parking garage, Aaron waited in the shadows. McKenna's intelligence was clear. Here is where Petro's troops would attack. A black SUV came, and 3 guys emerged, their moves indicating military training. Aaron identified them as XSN agents based on surveillance photographs. They surveyed the area with accuracy, yet they misjudged their aim. Aaron had diligently prepared, learning every blind spot and acoustic trick in the garage. When the lights flickered, the guys stiffened and separated to look. The first guy fell softly, subdued with a chokehold. The second was more cautious, but it was ultimately determined by Aaron's expertise and plan. The third task was the most difficult: sketch a weapon and analyze the shadows. Their short skirmish left Aaron with a damaged rib, but he counterattacked quickly and decisively, seizing the unconscious guys. Aaron scanned their phones, discovering conversations that indicated the scope of Petro's operation and something much worse: Claire's enthusiastic participation. One scary message stuck out: target's routine is verified. Wife reports pension and insurance updates. She's prepared to play the sad widow. Aaron leaned against a pillar, looking at the TV with bewilderment. The luxury clothing, late hours, and distant conduct were not simply for money laundering, they were part of a scheme to liquidate him and collect his benefits. Sirens in the distance drew him back. Before fleeing, he took photographs of the evidence and reported it anonymously. By the time the cops came, Petro's men would be unable to justify their presence without revealing the operation. As Aaron drove toward the safe home, his mind raced. The altercation in the garage supplied critical evidence exposing Petro's network to organized crime, but it also revealed an unpleasant reality about his wife. Grace had sent him a message saying, "Evidence secured. Meeting at the safe house in 30 minutes." Aaron turned his automobile, his determination strengthened. The clock was ticking. Petro's network would quickly notice that something had gone awry. The safe home, a generic walk-up in Brooklyn, was ideal for evading notice. Aaron came on foot, cautiously looking for indications of a tail after parking several streets away. Inside, Grace, McKenna, and Malign were already working, their faces illuminated by light monitors. "The phones?" Grace inquired. Aaron gave them over, along with his own phone, which was laden with photographs of important communications. "It's bad. Claire isn't just laundering money. She's been planning something far worse." Grace plugged in the phone. Her expression clenched when the messages displayed on the screen. "This is methodical," she said. "She's been setting this up for months, maybe years. Classic sociopath." McKenna whispered while reading over her shoulder. "Playing a role to perfection." Malign cross-referenced financial documents. "These life insurance adjustments fit the timeline. She's been methodically paving the way for your homicide." Aaron paced the room as his ribs ached. "I thought she was a sufferer, being manipulated. But she's been complicit all along." Malign whispered gently. "Sometimes, those closest to us are the hardest to truly know." The room remained quiet until Grace said, "We have everything we need to dismantle the operation, financial records, contact lists, operational details, but if we act too soon, they will scatter." McKenna said, "We need them to think their plan is on track." Aaron stopped pacing. "They'll expect those men to check in soon. We've got 12 hours at most." A phone rang, freezing everyone. Grace read the message aloud. "Is it finished? Need confirmation for the next step." It came from Claire. Aaron felt as if he had been hit. His wife's dispassionate statements, treating his murder as a duty, dashed any remaining hopes. Malign remarked with a harsh tone, "We use this." Grace nodded. "Keep them thinking everything's on schedule." McKenna agreed. "We hit them fast while they still believe their plan is intact." Aaron glanced at the letter, memories of his marriage conflicting with the harsh truth. How long has she been planning this? How much of our life was real? Grace's voice was calm and steady. "What's our move, Ethan?" Aaron straightened, determined. "We turned their plan against them. Keep control of the narrative and make them believe they are still winning." McKenna displayed blueprints of Petro's operation. "We know their personnel protocols and next moves. The advantage is ours and they still think they're dealing with a cop." Malign clarified, "Not a special forces veteran with a team of intelligence operatives." Aaron read the message one final time. "Send the reply. Let's set the trap." Grace wrote the message, and as she pushed submit, Aaron stepped to the window and stared at the city lights. His wife was somewhere waiting for word that he had died. She will soon realize how incorrect she had been. The monitoring room was bustling with activity, its monitors shining softly. Grace altered the audio streams. McKenna's voice came via their earpieces. "Camera 3 is live." McKenna's crew had worked all night to install surveillance devices in Claire and Petro's penthouse. Aaron's whole body tightened as he stared at the displays. The game had turned, and now it was their chance to attack. Aaron stiffened as the elevator doors opened on the surveillance stream. Claire went outside, followed by Petro. His polished hedge fund manager persona was no longer in place. In its stead comes the cool precision of a professional operation. "Everything is going as planned," Petro said, his Russian accent now obvious. He shook off his fitted jacket and let it fall into a leather chair. "The police found exactly what we wanted them to." Grace's crew had meticulously prepared the garage scene, putting choice evidence to corroborate the story of Thomas' death. Claire stepped to the bar and poured champagne with firm hands. The diamonds at her neck sparkled, last year's anniversary present. The detective on the scene didn't question anything, she said with delight. "Just another routine robbery gone wrong." Petro lifted a glass in faux joy. "The great Detective Jacobs brought down by common thugs. The irony is delicious." Aaron's gaze was fixed on Claire, looking for any indication of remorse. Instead, she grinned cruelly. "He never saw my potential. He treated me like a trophy wife. Now everything he built is mine. She looked out at the skyline. The pension, the insurance, the house. It all transfers automatically. No divorce. No legal battles. Clean. Grace's hands grasped Aaron's arm in quiet support as McKenna's squad took positions around the building, waiting for the signal. You've exceeded my expectations, Victoria, Petro said, joining her at the window. When I brought you into the Morrison deal, I wasn't sure you had the stomach for this. But you're a natural. Claire's brittle laughter filled the room. Real estate is a shark tank, Anton. You swim with exploders or you get eaten. She placed down her glass. Should we rehearse for tomorrow? The grieving widow must be flawless. Aaron's jaw tightened as he watched her recreate her distraught spouse's performance under Petro's guidance. Every aspect was rehearsed, even the shaky voice, sad movements, and picture grasped during the burial. Remember, Petro told her, this isn't just for the police. The whole city will be watching. The grieving widow of New York's most decorated cop. Perfect for the headlines. I've been playing this role for 15 years, Claire said, drying her tears with a monogrammed handkerchief. Every phrase was a blow to Aaron. The life he had lived with her was nothing more than a neatly constructed deception. Outside, McKenna's squad took up positions in preparation for the last part of the operation. Grace switched cameras when she saw something outside. Petro's security detail is arriving, she told me. SUVs pulling up to the building. They're rotating shifts. Aaron looked at his watch. In 6 hours, news of my end of life will break. Petro and Claire still believe their plan is flawless. Send the confirmation, Aaron said, his voice calm. Grace swiftly forwarded the fabricated message from Petro's men, informing them of Aaron's death. Moments later, they saw Petro checking his phone and smiling. It's done, he said. By tomorrow, your story will dominate the news. Claire lifted a glass. To new beginnings, she remarked with a wry smile, and to my dear husband. He should have kept his nose out of the Morrison deal. Petro nodded in approval. Your delivery is better, but add a touch of grief when mentioning him. It will sell the story for hours. They saw Petro and Claire discussing their intentions, which ranged from public announcements to financial measures. Each nonchalant reference of Aaron's murder betrayed their cruel goal. Around midnight, Petro went for his apartment, leaving Claire alone. Aaron saw her reflection in the glass as she rehearsed her widow's grin. The determination on her expression was unsettling. No sorrow, only pleasure. All units ready. McKenna asked via the headset. Waiting for the command, Aaron said. He cast one last look at Claire. Let them enjoy their celebration, he told them. Tomorrow, we show them a performance they'll never forget. Grace offered a brief nod, already in sync with government agencies planning the morning's key operation. Claire raised her glass in self-congratulation to her mirror on a nearby monitor. Surveillance cameras filmed her every step without her knowledge. The scene was prepared for the big finale, but only Aaron and his crew knew how the narrative would conclude. The first rays of dawn illuminated the New York cityscape in golden colors as Grace coordinated tactical teams stationed around the city. Months of meticulous planning had culminated in this moment, with simultaneous raids scheduled in a dozen locations to smash Petro's whole business. Status update. Grace said, her voice firm across the airwaves as she monitored numerous streams. The reports flowed in with accuracy. Team Alpha is in position at the penthouse, said the report. Team Bravo covering the Sky Bridge. Team Charlie securing the garage exits. Financial units ready to freeze accounts. McKenna's voice broke through the controlled banter. Primary target on the move. Petro just left his suite, heading toward the Sky Bridge. Aaron monitored Petro's movements using surveillance feeds. The man's security detail checked for dangers, unaware that they were already encircled. The captured hitman's phones provided Aaron's crew with everything they needed, including security plans, guard schedules, and even the passwords to Petro's private elevator. Target has entered the primary location, McKenna said. Proceeding to Phase 2. Petro walked inside Claire's penthouse as shown on film. She was dressed perfectly for her role, a sleek black designer suit, beautiful makeup, and red-rimmed eyes meticulously made with annoyance rather than actual tears. Standing in front of a mirror, she practiced her eulogy. "He was my everything," she said, holding her palm over her heart. "A brave officer, a devoted husband. I still can't believe he's gone." "Impressive delivery," Petro said, pouring himself coffee. "The press will eat it up. Do you have the charity statement ready?" Claire said, her grin chilly and exploitative. Nothing opens wallets faster than a grieving widow starting a foundation for her late husband. We'll have millions moving through it in no time. Their nonchalant scheming to benefit from Aaron's alleged end of life solidified his determination. He keyed his radio. "All teams, execute." The operation proceeded with precision throughout the nation. Federal investigators raided Petro's offices, seizing assets and arresting key players in his organization. Bank accounts were frozen, shell firms dissolved, and safe houses seized. Back in the penthouse, Claire fixed her fake jewelry, carefully picked to present the ideal picture of sadness, when the harsh snap of breaching charges broke the silence. McKenna's crew breezed past many entrance points with perfect cooperation. "Federal agents, get down on the ground," McKenna yelled, overcoming any opposition. "This operation is collapsing as we speak. It's over." Claire's facade fell, revealing intense rage as she recognized McKenna. "This means yes, Mrs. Jacobs," Grace said, coming in with her federal badge visible. Claire's astonished look matched Petro's as comprehension dawned. Her sophisticated web of lies had always been part of Aaron's greater strategy. "Practicing your lines." Aaron's voice cut through the team's communications. "Save them for your prison audience." Petro was overcome with desperation. He threw his coffee cup at an agent and rushed into what he assumed was a panic room, but McKenna's team had previously disabled its security mechanisms. "Clear target secured, read the last report." Petro and Claire were constrained. Grace recounted their rights. Agents scrupulously recorded each piece of evidence. "The Morrison Project," Claire said coldly as she passed Grace in handcuffs. "Seized, like everything else," Grace said. "Your elaborate scheme to stage a homicide gave us the predicate crimes we needed. Turns out plotting to eliminate a cop isn't the best cover." Similar scenarios played out around the country. Grace's phone vibrated with confirmations, Phoenix secured. Miami materials are in possession. The San Francisco operation is complete. Dallas has no casualties. McKenna joined Aaron in the surveillance center. Ready to face her. Aaron fixed his tie, prepared to approach the lady who had plotted his death. "Everything's recorded," McKenna remarked. "The jury's going to love this." As Aaron climbed the elevator to the penthouse, his thoughts turned to the long journey that had led him here. Every move, every facet had been planned to get them to this point. When the doors opened, Aaron walked into a room full with shattered illusions. His marriage had ended, but justice had just started. Months later, the federal courthouse was buzzing with activity. The procedure generated national headlines, and today marked the end of the trial. An international criminal ring is brought down, a crooked real estate company is revealed, and a detective discovers his wife's killing plot. Justice has finally been delivered. Aaron took the witness stand in court, ready to deliver his last evidence. The evidence revealed during the trial was undisputed: surveillance films, money ledgers, intercepted communications, and a painstakingly documented killing plan. However, the prosecution wanted to end with an emotional punch, enabling Aaron to express, in his own words, the severity of the betrayal. "Detective Jacobs," the prosecution said, "can you describe the moment you first realized your wife's involvement in this conspiracy?" Aaron swept his sight over the courtroom, momentarily focusing on Claire. She sat at the defense table, her polished appearance replaced by the harsh reality of prison uniforms. Her face was naked after months in captivity. "It wasn't the homicide plot that broke me," Aaron said, his voice steely yet contemplative. "It was realizing that every moment of our 15 years together was a lie. Every anniversary, every holiday, every quiet evening at home, each one was just part of her act. A long rehearsal leading to my eventual removal." As he talked, the courtroom screens showed evidence, images of Claire and Petro celebrating the alleged success of the killing, recordings of Claire preparing a heartbroken widow's speech, and paperwork exposing intentions to exploit his death to siphon millions via phony organizations. The most egregious crime here, Aaron continued, his tone sharpening, isn't just the money laundering or the conspiracy to commit murder. It's the betrayal of trust. Not just mine, but the trust of every honest citizen who relies on the integrity of our institutions. When criminals like Nathan Sterling, better known as Viktor Morozov, turn legitimate businesses into criminal fronts, they don't just steal money, they steal our faith in the system, in each other, and in the jurors listened intently as Aaron described how the inquiry showed Petro's long-standing strategies of hiring ethically ambiguous but ambitious people, entangling them in progressively unlawful actions, and then letting them take the fall once their usefulness expired. It was a pattern intended to keep him safe while extending his power. Later, Aaron and Grace sat silently in the courtroom cafeteria, watching news headlines about the trial on a mounted television. The numbers were staggering: 13 fraudulent real estate scams revealed, more than $3 billion in assets confiscated, and scores of conspirators facing charges. Grace slipped a cup of coffee toward him, a little gesture that had become an unspoken ritual over the years. "What a way to end a marriage," she said, her tone light but sympathetic. "Any second thoughts?" Grace inquired. Aaron pondered the subject while he watched a program on Hannah Mitchell, one of the whistleblowers who had been vital in solving the case and was now under witness protection. "Just that I didn't figure it out sooner," he said after a pause. "But sometimes you have to walk through the dark to really see the light." The program then moved to McKenna, whose security business had received widespread reputation and government contracts as a result of its role in the operation. He was giving an interview on ways for avoiding similar scams. "Hes thriving," Grace told me, running his own investigation firm in Colorado. "Hes got a knack for spotting financial fraud that most people can't even comprehend. His clients love him." Aaron smiled softly, considering how far he had come. "And Bethany?" "She just finished her MBA at Stanford," Grace added. Bethany's bravery sparked a wave of change, and her testimony against Petro's network not only cracked the case, but also inspired others to come forward. Witness protection helped her rebuild her life, and now she's using her platform to advocate for whistleblowers. "What about the Morrison complex?" McKenna said, taking a coffee from Grace's assistant. "Completely repurposed," Grace stated. "It's now a regional training center for law enforcement. They are using it to teach financial crime investigation techniques. Sometimes the best way to deal with darkness," she said, smiling, "is to shine a spotlight right on it." Their talk drifted to current events, but Grace's thoughts remained focused on the Petro case's long-term consequences. Its disclosures prompted a major revamping of New York's real estate practices. New restrictions, sarcastically dubbed the Jacobs reforms, forced developers to divulge unprecedented volumes of financial data, guaranteeing that no hidden players could operate in the background. A framed newspaper headline hung boldly on the wall of a tiny cafe in Dorchester, where Grace and Aaron had previously had several early morning planning sessions. "New York detective busts worldwide criminal syndicate," it said in big type. Martha, the ever-enthusiastic waiter, enjoyed pointing it out to guests and proudly describing how the two investigators used to collaborate over coffee and omelets. The federal courthouse, which is now a popular destination for law students, has become a case study in itself. The Petro case was a staple in criminal law schools, demonstrating the confluence of technology, law, and human psychology in contemporary cases. Aaron seldom returned to New York. Too many ghosts haunted the city where his life had collapsed. Instead, he found tranquility in the Rockies, where he could spend his days doing important work and enjoying nature's therapeutic power. Slowly, he began dating again, carefully reconstructing his personal life with the knowledge gained from his previous missteps. His final contact with Claire was throughout her appeals process. She'd written a letter full of apologies and requests for understanding, but the words seemed as empty as their marriage had become. Aaron opted not to respond, allowing silence to communicate the message more effectively than words could. The cash collected from Petro's operation were put to excellent use. A survivor compensation scheme assisted small companies and families in recovering from financial catastrophe, while Aaron donated his part of the seized assets to scholarships for the children of deceased policemen. It was his attempt to transform personal grief into something useful for others. Grace's phone vibrated, bringing her focus back to the present. Another case file needed evaluation. As she and McKenna worked through the specifics, she thought on how the Petro case had changed their lives and their industry. "You know what Aaron always says? McKenna inquired, examining the file. The biggest scams don't hide in the shadows. They thrive in plain sight, cloaked in respectability. Gray smirked. Speaking of scams, did you hear about the support group? She was alluding to a network of wives and partners who had been caught off guard by treachery, just as Aaron had been. The organization provided consolation and strength, assisting members in their healing while also raising awareness about financial abuse and exploitation. Occasionally, Aaron would speak at their meetings, said Grace, sharing his story to give others hope and a path forward. What started as a complex network of falsehoods and deceit has resulted in a legacy of truth and endurance. Though the shadows of Petro's misdeeds lingered, the brightness that followed was unmistakable and permanent. Claire clung to a lone memento from her past in her cell at the high-security Folsom prison, an old picture hidden among her possessions. It featured her and Aaron standing side by side at the ribbon-cutting event for her first real estate endeavor. They smiled, full of optimism for the future. On restless evenings, she would look at the image, attempting to identify the moment when her desire turned poison, twisting her ideals until achievement became more important than people. Meanwhile, in a harsh Supermax cell in Leavenworth, Viktor Morozov's thoughts took a new direction. Reflection was not in his nature. Despite being deprived of his power and freedom, he remained cunning, plotting how to exploit any flaw in the system. Though his reach had been severely limited, his cunning intellect refused to rest. Aaron stood on the porch of his mountain house in Colorado, watching the sunset paint the peaks with gold and violet colors. His phone vibrated with a text from Grace informing him of another case. Another chance to save someone else from the treachery he had experienced. He smiled softly, considering how far he had come. Had learned that endings were frequently disguised as beginnings, an opportunity to create something greater, based on truth and perseverance. The treachery that had once destroyed his life had become the impetus for a new mission, to save others from falling victim to the same deception. Exposing the truth had been the first step toward restoring his life, and it now drives his work every day. As darkness fell throughout the country, from New York to Colorado, Connecticut to Leavenworth, the principal characters in this narrative faced the repercussions of their decisions. Some were bound by steel bars, while others were haunted by memories of their own guilt or resolve. The realities and lessons learned from the case weighed heavily on everyone. The narrative of Aaron and Sophia Caldwell, as well as Viktor Morozov's enterprise and its demise, expanded beyond a criminal probe. It demonstrated the power of truth over falsehood, justice over greed, and people's incredible capacity to rebuild after betrayal. Aaron kept a tiny plaque on his desk at his Phoenix office, given to him by Grace. The tiny inscription read, "From darkness to light." Every morning, as he read through fresh examples of corporate deception and financial manipulation, the words reminded him of what was most important: even the darkest traumas may lead to change. The plaque served as both a marker of his history and a light for his future, reminding him that fighting for honesty was worthwhile. And thus the narrative came to a peaceful end. The conspirators stayed imprisoned, their plots shattered. The investigators resumed their work, motivated by their accomplishments. Aaron, no longer merely a detective, but a custodian of the truth, found meaning in his mountain retreat. His job now was to assist others walk the same dark pathways he had previously taken, ensuring that they, too, could find their way back to the light. It wasn't the conclusion everyone had hoped for, but it could have been the one they deserved. Choices had been made. Consequences were faced. In the end, all anybody could ask for was the opportunity to learn from their errors, rise above their circumstances, and go ahead with the hard-earned clarity that comes with addressing the darkness. No matter how dark the route to the light was always available for those who were prepared to take it. Thank you for watching. What were your thoughts on Aaron's journey and the ending? Please share your opinions in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.